You've probably had this moment. Something weird lines up, a number, a name, a chance encounter, and you wonder if it meant something. You try to brush it off, but it sticks with you. Because deep down, it felt like more than coincidence. And if those moments really are signals, and not just brain glitches, then ignoring them could mean missing something life-changing. This video breaks down the science behind why we notice patterns and why synchronicities might actually matter. So you can stop second-guessing your gut and start seeing meaning where it might actually be real. We call it coincidence to protect the rules. But part of you suspects the rules are deeper than they seem, and that moments like this unveil something about how awareness and reality relate. This is where the science of the brain and the language of the spirit overlap. Not in blind belief, not in dismissive skepticism, but in an honest look at what it's like when the inner world and the outer world arrive in sync. Your brain isn't just recording the world, it's predicting it. Every moment, it guesses what should happen next, then checks if it was right. Neuroscientists call this predictive processing. It's efficient, it saves energy, and most days it works so well, you forget it's happening. You open the door, and your brain already knows the light switch is to the left. The counter is cool to the touch. The kettle clicks just before it boils. But sometimes the forecast and the world meet with such precision that you feel the contact. For a second, there is no distance between expectation and event. That shock of fit sends a flare through your nervous system. It's not just novelty, it's recognition. And recognition is the language of meaning. There is a network in your brain that handles these flags of relevance. It is called the salience network. When it detects that something in the torrent of sensation deserves attention, it flips a switch. Signals converge in regions like the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula, and your awareness tightens as if the universe just leaned in. It's not mystical to say a moment lights up. In a literal sense, it does. The brain announces, this matters. If salience is the gate, emotion is the electricity. The limbic system tags experience with charge. Neuroscientist Kent Berridge calls the conversion of raw stimuli into personal significance incentive salience. It's the difference between hearing a song and feeling like it's speaking to you. It's how the nervous system says, don't miss this. When a moment fits and it hits you emotionally, it feels like a message. Your body gets it even when logic can't explain it. Imagine this, you're driving home after a fight, the kind that slides into silence. The radio shuffles and a song your father used to play when he wanted to apologize breaks into the car. Your throat tightens. You can measure the neurotransmitters, name the circuits, but none of that diminishes the presence of the moment. Science describes the machinery, but it does not cancel the meaning. You also notice more of what you prime for. Another system, older and simpler, runs that filter. The reticular activating system in the brainstem decides which sliver of reality you get to see. You buy a red car, and red cars seem to multiply. They didn't. Your filter tuned to them. Replace cars with longing, fear, hope, or courage, and you begin to understand why certain themes seem to follow you. Your attention is not a flashlight on a neutral world. It is a tuning dial. When we call synchronicity a sign, the skeptic hears superstition. The mystic hears conversation. In practice, they're closer than they think. Selective attention is real. So is the way attention reshapes experience. The moment you decide something matters, your nervous system reorganizes perception to show that it does. In psychology, that's top-down modulation. In spiritual language, it's alignment. Different names, but same effect. The inner state and outer pattern begin to echo. In the spaces between tasks, the default mode network hums memory, imagination, and narrative self. The default mode network, or DMN, is a large-scale brain network that activates when your mind is not focused on the external world, like when you're daydreaming, reflecting, remembering, or imagining. During reflection, prayer, journaling, or quiet walks, this network can synchronize with salient systems. The result is a feeling of guidance. You contemplate a question, then the world replies with a phrase in a book, a line in a podcast, a sentence on a billboard. Your mind has softened enough to weave inner story with outer pattern, and in this integration feels like instruction. Skeptics say, you would have seen any phrase as meaningful because you were looking for it. Sometimes, but there are also matches so exact, so charged, that they steady rather than hype you. These are not symptoms of instability, they are signs of integration. The experience feels sacred because cohesion is a sacred experience. The mind loves coherence like the body loves oxygen. Coherence is not just psychological, it's physical. In physics, coherence means that waves move together in sync. Their peaks and valleys line up. So instead of canceling each other out, they strengthen and create order. In lasers, light becomes so coordinated that it stops scattering and behaves as a single beam. In the same way, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions line up, noise eases, edges sharpen, and possibility clarifies. Some scientists wonder if the weird behavior of quantum particles might actually play out inside the brain too. Physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff proposed a theory suggesting that tiny structures inside brain cells, called microtubules, could act like miniature quantum processors. In their view, moments of conscious awareness might arise when these quantum processes align or snap into order. The idea is still debated, but what matters isn't who's right. It's what this possibility points to. That consciousness itself might behave like a wave, capable of becoming more or less synchronized, just like energy in physics. And when your inner world and outer world suddenly line up in a meaningful way, that experience of synchronicity might be what that inner alignment, that coherence, actually feels like from the inside. Coherence does not live only in the skull, it pulses in the chest. When people cultivate genuine appreciation, their heart rhythms smooth into a harmonic pattern, sending stabilizing signals up the vagus nerve. Heart-brain coherence correlates with clearer thinking and steadier attention. You don't need charts to know the state. You've felt it. Gratitude that makes the world vivid, calm that widens your view. In those states, alignments show up, not because reality changed, but because you did. This leads to a deeper claim, one that bridges physics and consciousness. Physicist John Wheeler proposed that the universe is not a finished stage where we merely act out our roles, but a participatory universe, one that requires observation to fully exist. In quantum mechanics, this idea takes on startling form through what's known as the observer effect. At the quantum level, particles such as electrons don't exist as solid points until they are observed. They exist as probabilities, waves of potential outcomes. In experiments like the double-slit experiment, particles behave like waves when unmeasured, spreading into possibilities. But the moment a conscious observer measures or observes them, they collapse into a single, defined state. Observation doesn't just record reality, it shapes which version of reality emerges. Wheeler took this further. He suggested that on some level, the universe might need observation and awareness to bring its possibilities into concrete being. That means consciousness isn't just watching the universe unfold from the outside, it's participating in its formation from within. That sounds abstract, but in daily life, it's surprisingly practical. Noticing is not passive. Each time you pay attention to something, a pattern, a coincidence, or a thought, you're not simply witnessing it, you're also interacting with it. You're collapsing possibilities into experience. In systems theory, that's called a feedback loop. Input changes output, which then informs new input. In spiritual language, it's called reflection, the outer world echoing your state of awareness. Both describe the same mystery, a participatory reality where perception itself carries creative power. Okay, someone says, isn't this wishful thinking with scientific color? It would be if it weren't anchored to what we know about networks that govern attention, emotion, and meaning. The salience network raises the flag. The limbic system supplies voltage. The RAS filters the sensory overload. The default mode synchronizes when you slow down enough to listen. When all of that lines up, you feel the world answer you. Call it prayer. Call it pattern. The effect is a lived increase in coherence. Long before these circuits were mapped, Carl Jung wrestled with the same territory. He noticed coincidences so exact they defied shrugging off. He called the phenomenon synchronicity and described it as a causal connecting principle, that is, two events joined by meaning rather than mechanism. Jung's close friend, Wolfgang Pauli, who was also a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, believed that the mind and the physical world might be connected through a deeper underlying order. He and Jung called this idea the unus mundus, which means one world, a single reality where inner experiences and outer events both arise from the same source. Today, scientists and psychologists explore that idea with new methods and language. But the intuition remains the same. Our thoughts and the material world aren't completely separate. They're two sides of the same reality. Not every pattern is a message. The brain can overfit. Apophenia, which is finding connections where none exist, is real. Spiritual traditions warn about the same thing: attachment, projection, and omens everywhere. So how do you tell the difference? You listen to your nervous system. True synchronicity has a signature. It quiets you. It widens your breath. It does not demand frantic decoding. It does not tighten your chest. It makes you more available to the next right action. Why does any of this matter? Because synchronicities cluster around thresholds. They appear when you're about to change, when the old model dissolves, when the future is unbuilt. In those liminal spaces, the predictive brain is hungry for new coherence. Synchronicity can act like a compass, not dictating where to go, but orienting you toward what feels alive and true. A small story. A woman is spent in a job that pays well but takes her light. She writes, "What would it mean to choose vitality over certainty?" That week, 3 she speaks to people who don't know each other, mention the same organization. She looks it up. Its mission is exactly what she cares about, and they are hiring in her city for the one role she could fill without starting over. Coincidence? Yes. And also a pattern with enough emotional weight to become direction. Meaning changes physiology. People with purpose show stronger immune responses, lower stress reactivity, and better long-term health. The loop has a name: psychoneuroimmunology. The stakes are not abstract. To be in conversation with your life is to be healthier in it. It's reasonable to ask whether synchronicity is just the mind congratulating itself for finding what it already wanted. Sometimes it is. But often the alignment draws you somewhere less comfortable, toward apology, toward a difficult decision, toward an act of integrity you've been avoiding. That is another test. Wishful thinking rarely asks you to grow. There's a simpler way to tell if something was real guidance or just wishful thinking. Give it time. True insights hold up. As days or weeks pass, they still make sense, maybe even more than they did at first. The excitement you felt in the moment settles into calm understanding, not regret or confusion. When a synchronicity is genuine, it doesn't fade or fall apart under reflection. It becomes part of how your life fits together, something solid you can build on. If this all sounds poetic, it is, and also practical. A way to live with synchronicity is simple. Slow down. Keep a small record. Note what was happening in you when the pattern appeared. Track the feeling as carefully as the event. When another alignment arrives, ask, does it amplify the same presence, the same wideness of breath? Or does it make you tight and desperate? Over time, you learn your nervous system's language for yes and no. The more coherent your inner state, the more the world mirrors that order. This is not magical thinking. It is how attention and emotion recruit perception into partnership. When people cultivate gratitude, their hearts enter smoother rhythms, their prefrontal cortex steadies, their salience network flags fewer false alarms. When noise quiets, signals stand out. You notice the email you would have ignored. You catch the line in the book that aligns your day. You make the call you've been avoiding. It's tempting to turn all this into a formula. Do X, feel Y, attract Z. But life doesn't work like that. Control is not the goal. Control closes the conversation. The real purpose isn't to bend reality to your will, but to meet it with attention, honesty, and courage. When life mirrors something back to you through patterns or timing, it's not testing whether you can manipulate it. It's inviting you to respond. Physics offers a good metaphor. When two sound waves share the same frequency, they naturally synchronize. They don't fight to align, they resonate. The same is true in life. You don't have to push the world into your rhythm. You tune yourself to your thoughts, your emotions, and your integrity until you naturally resonate with the kind of experiences you want to create. That's what alignment really means. It's not about control. It's about coherence, being internally clear enough that life can meet you halfway. You're in a cafe with your laptop, rewriting a message because you're afraid of how it will land. You finally breathe and choose honesty. You hit send. A stranger at the next table answers a phone and says, "Just say what's true." You'll feel better either way. You both smile without speaking. You know it could be nothing. You also know it helped you do the next right thing. If nothing else, the universe has impeccable timing. So what is synchronicity? Not proof of fate, not a trick of the light. It's a felt increase in coherence between your inner state and the patterns around you. The salience network raises its flag, the limbic system colors the moment, the RAS lets the signal pass. The default mode integrates story with circumstance. The heart smooths into harmony. The mind settles enough to recognize it belongs to a world that is not indifferent. It is consciousness noticing itself in motion. Here in that description, both science and spirit. Science provides the anatomy of attention and emotion. Spirituality provides the practice of reverence. You need them together. One without the other becomes either cold or unmoored. When they cooperate, meaning stabilizes without hardening into superstition. You're allowed to feel wonder and still ask for evidence. You're allowed to measure what can be measured and bow to what can only be met. Some live years without letting themselves feel this dialogue. Some see messages in every cloud. Most of us are learning the middle way, grounded awe. The discipline is light but real. Tell the truth. Regulate your nervous system. Ask better questions. When a pattern arrives, consider it. Test it. If it makes you small and frantic, set it down. If it makes you clear and brave, take the next step. You don't need to know where the road ends to take the step that is yours. Perhaps the deepest reason synchronicity matters is that it retrains belonging. In a culture that prizes control, collaboration with reality is medicine. It reminds you that the point of life is not only to survive randomness or master variables, but to participate in a conversation larger than your plans. When you experience that conversation, you feel less alone. You feel met. From that feeling, better choices tend to grow. One day, research may map every network and settle debates about what consciousness is. Maybe we'll find quantum fingerprints in neural code. Maybe a different bridge. Either way, explanation cannot replace experience. Knowing the word ocean does not replace the sound of the wave. The map informs the journey. It does not walk for you. So the next time a coincidence taps your shoulder, don't pounce and don't run. Pause. Breathe once for your body and once for your mind. Ask what quality of consciousness the moment invites: courage, humility, forgiveness, clarity. Then practice that quality in the very next thing you do. If the pattern returns, consider it guidance. If it doesn't, consider your steadiness a gift. Either way, you have participated. You don't need to prove the universe is speaking to learn its language. You only need to listen with the kind of attention that makes conversation possible. Your brain is wired for that, your heart is built for that, and your life is waiting for that. Synchronicities are not interruptions to the plot. They are part of how the plot reveals itself, through timing, resonance, and the quiet solidarity between who you are and where you are. And if you want a final test for whether a moment is worth honoring, here it is. Does it move you toward honesty, care, and creative action? If yes, follow it. If not, bless it and let it pass. There is no punishment for missing a sign in a universe that keeps offering more chances to show up. What matters is that you show up when you can, with as much coherence as you can muster, and allow reality to meet you halfway. Because in the end, synchronicity is not a trick or a trap. It is an invitation to notice that meaning is a living thing, that attention is an instrument, and that you exist inside relationships far wider than the story of me. When inner order ripples outward, the world has a way of answering. The answer may be quiet, even ordinary. But the ordinary has always carried the sacred in disguise. So when the timing is uncanny and the line you needed arrives exactly when it should, don't explain it away too quickly. Let it land. Let it open the window. Widen the breath. Steady the feet. And remind the heart it is not alone here. Not random, not separate. Part of the conversation and welcome in it. That, grounded in neuroscience and lit by spirit, is why synchronicities might actually matter. Not as evidence that we can control reality with thought, but as proof that we belong to a reality that includes us when we pay attention. The feeling you get in those moments is not foolishness. It is coherence. It is mind and world resonating, a mutual recognition that calls you to live with more courage and care. And when you answer that call, life doesn't just look different, it becomes different.